All right, let's dive into one of the most intriguing mysteries on Earth. Today we're tackling Easter Island, also known as Rapanui.
Oh, Easter Island it's like a puzzle box,
Sure.
We see evidence of incredible things, but so many questions remain about its people, like where they came from and ultimately what happened to them.
Yeah, it's one thing to hear about Easter Island being isolated, but to really get it, imagine this. You're in a plane, you're flying over the Pacific Ocean for hours and hours, and then this tiny triangle of volcanic rock just appears. It's like a misplaced mountain in a sea of blue. That's Rapa Nui, over 2,000 kilometers from any major landmass. It makes you wonder how did people even find this place, let alone build a complex society there?
Oh, their seafaring skills. They must have been extraordinary. Polynesian people were master navigators. They used the stars and currents, even the flight patterns of birds, to find their way across huge distances. But even with those skills, reaching Easter Island, it would have been an incredible feat. Kind of makes you think they were really looking for this place, like a deliberate search for a new home.
Yeah, and that search is reflected in the island's mythology. It mentions this legend about the first king of the island. He had a dream of his homeland sinking beneath the waves, so he sent out 7 explorers to find a new land, and they eventually found Rapa Nui and called it Te Pito Tepa, the navel of the world. It's a beautiful image, but it also begs the question, was there a real lost homeland that inspired the story?
It's tempting to connect it to something real, maybe a natural disaster that forced these early voyagers to find refuge. But you have to remember that myths, they often have many purposes, explaining the unexplainable, preserving cultural memory, and reinforcing social structures. This particular myth, it could be a way of legitimizing the king's authority, you know, connecting into this divine mandate to settle this new land.
Right, the story itself becomes a tool for building a shared identity and purpose, especially in such a challenging and isolated environment.
Exactly. And you see that need for strong social structure even more when you consider the scale of their achievements. I mean, just look at the Moai statues. Think about the level of organization and cooperation it took to quarry, carve, and transport those massive stone figures. Some of them weigh up to 30 tons. And they only had the tools and resources they could find on the island.
I know it's mind-boggling. Even today, with all our technology, it would be a monumental undertaking. It's about the traditional belief that the Moai walked to their final locations. With the help of mana, this spiritual force, it's easy to dismiss that as mythology. But I'm curious, how does that belief fit into the bigger picture of Polynesian cosmology?
Well, mana is like a core concept in Polynesian culture. It's this spiritual energy that's in everything. People, objects, even places. It's not some magical power that defies the laws of physics. It's more like an understanding that everything is connected. So the belief that the Moai walked, it might be a way of expressing the incredible effort and spiritual dedication and the connection to the land that went into their creation. It's a way of honoring the ancestors who made this incredible task possible.
So it's not about walking literally, but about giving these statues a power that reflects the community's own strength and unity.
Exactly. And that unity might have been tested more than we know. The Urias largus, the long ears, and the Urias cortas, the short ears. And this isn't just about looks.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Inca. Elongated earlobes were a sign of status and nobility. So could this mean there was a hierarchy on Easter Island? With the Urias largus as a ruling class, maybe?
That's a good point. The Urias largus were considered closer to these mysterious visitors.
Visitors.
Yeah, but who these visitors were, that's a big question. Are we talking about another group of people who arrived later, bringing new knowledge and technology? Or is this like a spiritual connection with ancestral spirits or deities, maybe?
It's like this giant question mark hanging over everything. We need to figure out who these visitors were and what their role was to really understand the social dynamics of Rapa Nui.
Exactly. And that feeds into the bigger questions about the Moai. Were they built only by the islanders? Or did these visitors help? Did their arrival change the social structure? Maybe even leading to conflict? These are questions archaeologists are still trying to answer.
There's one thing about the Moai that has always fascinated me. Their eyes. They were inlaid with coral and obsidian, giving them this intense gaze. It allowed them to see into the afterlife. I mean, that's a powerful image. But what does it tell us about the islanders' beliefs and their relationship with their ancestors?
Well, the Moai weren't just statues. They represented ancestral power, guardians watching over the island and its people. Giving them eyes was like bringing them to life. Connecting the living world to the realm of the spirits, it suggests a deep reverence for their ancestors, and a belief that death wasn't the end, just a transition to another state of being.
It's like they created a physical link between the past, present, and future, solidifying their connection to their heritage, their place in the cosmos.
Exactly. And that connection to the cosmos might be even deeper than we think. Astroarchaeological connection, suggesting that the placement of the Moai might have been influenced by the stars.
Now, this is where things get interesting. We know that Polynesian people were master navigators. They used the stars to guide their voyages. But what if their knowledge went deeper? Could they have had a deeper understanding of the cosmos? That influenced their buildings and spiritual practices?
It's a fascinating possibility,
Ah.
and one that's worth exploring. Let's take a look at these potential star alignments and see if they reveal a hidden message from Rapanui's past. But first, let's take a closer look at the island itself. Easter Island wasn't just some random piece of land in the Pacific. Its location and unique features might have played a bigger role than we realize. What's really interesting is that Easter Island's location, it's not just remote. It's almost like a beacon in the Pacific Ocean. Even NASA thought about using it as a potential emergency landing site for spacecraft. That shows you how visible and important it is.
Wow, really? I had no idea. You'd think being so isolated would make it easy to miss. But maybe that isolation was what made it attractive. Maybe the early settlers saw it as a sanctuary, a place to get away from conflict, or to follow their own spiritual path.
That's a really cool idea. And if you look at a map, Easter Island is almost exactly halfway between South America and Polynesia. It's like a crossroads in the ocean, maybe connecting those two very different cultures.
So that could explain the visitors the video mentioned. Maybe they weren't just a one-time thing, but part of some ongoing contact between Easter Island and other parts of the world.
Yeah, definitely possible. It challenges the idea of Easter Island as a completely isolated society. Imagine Rapa Nui as a trading post, a meeting place for different cultures and ideas. That would completely change how we understand their history and influences.
And it might explain how certain technologies or cultural practices spread across the Pacific. It's like Easter Island could be this missing link connecting different civilizations.
Now let's go back to the Moai. If we think about that astroarchaeological theory, could their placement be more than random? The video says that a lot of them face upwards, almost like they're looking at the stars.
I know it's hard not to feel awe when you picture those statues, with their mysterious gaze fixed on the sky. What if they were built to align with specific events in the sky, like solstices or equinoxes, marking important dates in their calendar or rituals?
Some researchers think they found evidence of those alignments, suggesting a deep understanding of astronomy and how it connects to their beliefs. Imagine the islanders gathering around the Moai during these celestial events, connecting with their ancestors and reaffirming their place in the cosmos.
Yeah, it's amazing. It challenges that old idea of them being a primitive society. These were people who observed the skies and tracked the movements of stars and planets, and they used that knowledge in their art.
Exactly. It shows their intellectual curiosity and their ability to create complex knowledge based on the natural world.
But even with that knowledge, something went wrong. The video talks about a societal collapse on Easter Island, a time of conflict and environmental problems. It's such a contrast to the image of a harmonious society working together to build the Moai.
It's a good reminder that even the most advanced societies are vulnerable to pressure from within and forces from outside. The video says that competition between the Orechos Largos and Orechos Cortas got worse, maybe because of dwindling resources and power struggles.
That makes me think about the visitors again. Did they disrupt the existing social order? Did they contribute to the tensions that led to conflict? Or was the collapse caused by things happening only on Rapa Nui, like too many people or deforestation or climate change?
It's probably a mix of things, internal and external. Imagine a long drought putting stress on resources, leading to competition for land and food. Then outsiders arrive bringing new diseases or competing for those same resources. That creates a perfect storm for instability.
It's like a warning. Even the most isolated societies are connected to the bigger world and vulnerable to forces they can't control.
And the environmental problems on Easter Island are a serious warning. The video mentions deforestation as a big factor in their decline. Imagine an island covered in lush forests, and then they cut down all the trees. To move the Moai, build houses and make fires.
That's the classic example of what happens when a society uses up too many resources without thinking about the consequences. They destroy their own environment, leading to soil erosion, less rainfall, and ultimately less ability to support themselves.
And that brings us back to mana. It represents power and connection. But it also emphasizes responsibility and balance. The islanders' actions show a break from that balance, a failure to respect the balance between human needs and nature.
So it's not just a story of technology and culture, it's also a story of human mistakes and the results of our choices. It makes you wonder, could what happened to Rapanui happen to us if we don't learn from their mistakes?
It's a scary thought, right?
Yeah.
But the story of Easter Island isn't just about collapse. It's also about resilience and adaptation. The people who live there now are descendants of those islanders. They're carrying on their culture and finding new ways to thrive in a changed environment.
That's a good point. It's easy to focus on the tragedy of the collapse, but they survived. That shows the human spirit, our ability to learn from hard times and find new ways to exist, even when things are really tough.
You got it. And that resilience should give us hope. It means that even when we mess up, even when we face setbacks, we can adapt and rebuild and create a new future.
But that future depends on what we choose to do now. If Easter Island is like a mini version of Earth, showing us our own challenges, what can we learn from them? How can we avoid the same fate?
That's the question we need to think about. Maybe the answer is finding that balance again, that respect for how everything is connected, understanding that our actions have consequences, not just for us, but for the people who come after us.
It's about learning to live in harmony with nature, using sustainable practices, putting cooperation ahead of competition, and recognizing that our differences make us stronger, not divided.
Yeah, it's about learning from the past, not just the good stuff, but the bad stuff too, and using that knowledge to make a better future for humanity, a future that is fair, sustainable, and fulfilling for everyone.
Those are powerful words. They really resonate with me. But I gotta admit, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. How could a society that built the Moai also make choices that led to their own downfall?
That question has been bugging archaeologists and historians for a long time. We might never have a definitive answer, but I think it shows us something fundamental about human nature. We're complicated, capable of both amazing creativity and destructive behavior.
Like a constant battle between what we want to achieve
Yeah,
and our own limitations.
exactly. And Easter Island shows us that even the smartest people in most advanced societies aren't immune to that struggle.
So it's not just about technology or politics, it's about a deeper change, a change in how we think, recognizing that our fate is tied to the choices we make and the values we hold.
It's about understanding that we're not separate from nature. We are nature. Our actions affect everything, not just us, but all living things.
It's about realizing that true progress isn't just about technology or money. It's about creating a world where both humans and nature can succeed, where we balance our needs with the needs of the planet.
It's about rediscovering that sense of connection, that respect for the balance of life, that the people of Rapanui may have forgotten.
This deep dive into Easter Island has been amazing. It's challenged my ideas, made me curious, and left me feeling like we need to act now about the choices we face as a global society.
I think that's what's so powerful about these ancient mysteries. They make us look at our own time. They force us to face uncomfortable truths and think about different ways of being in the world.
They remind us that history isn't just facts and dates. It's a living story of human experience, full of lessons we can learn from, both good and bad.
And maybe the most important lesson is that we have a choice. We can repeat the mistakes of the past, or we can build a different future. A future where humans and nature thrive together.
Thanks for joining us on this journey to Easter Island. We hope it's made you want to learn more, ask questions, and think about the connections between the past, the present, and the future we're creating. Wow, it's amazing how a tiny remote island can make you think about the whole fate of humanity. It's like Easter Island shows us our own civilization and makes us face some hard truths about how we treat the planet and each other.
You know what gets me is that the people of Rapa Nui weren't just greedy or anything. They were incredibly resourceful, innovative people. They built those incredible Moai statues, developed farming techniques, and navigated across the ocean. But at some point, things went off balance.
Yeah, the video doesn't really say it, but it does make you wonder, like, did all that focus on building the Moai, honoring their ancestors in this big way, did it make them blind to what was happening to the environment? Like maybe their cultural and spiritual ambitions got in the way of basic survival?
That's a great point. It challenges that romantic idea of ancient people living in perfect harmony with nature. Maybe they were so busy reaching for the stars, connecting with the cosmos through their art, that they didn't notice the problems right here on Earth.
Yeah, and isn't that something we could easily do today? We get caught up in our technology and economic growth. We call it progress. But we often ignore the environmental and social costs. We're so focused on the future that we forget to look around and see what our choices are doing to the world.
Yeah, it's like we're building our own Moai, striving for greatness. but not seeing the downsides. We use up resources, pollute the oceans, mess up ecosystems, all in the name of progress. But progress towards what? And at what cost?
These are really tough questions, and I don't think there are easy answers. But Easter Island shows us that ignoring them won't make them disappear. We have to face them head on. We have to understand that everything we do is connected. That's the only way to find a better path forward.
Right. And maybe that's the best thing Rapanui gives us. It's not just a warning, it's a call to action. It tells us to rethink our values, to make sustainability a priority, to work together, and to see that our differences are good, not something that divides us.
The video ends on a hopeful note, though. It talks about how resilient the islanders were, how they adapted and survived even after everything they went through. It shows that even after collapse, there's always a chance to start fresh and find new ways to thrive.
And that fresh start begins with a change in how we see things. We need to realize that we're not separate from nature. We are nature. Everything we do has a ripple effect. It affects us and the whole web of life.
It's about understanding that real progress isn't just about new gadgets or making more money. It's about building a world where humans and nature can both do well, where we find that balance between what we need, what the planet needs.
It's about rediscovering that sense of connection, that respect for the balance of life, that the people of Rapa Nui might have forgotten.
This deep dive into Easter Island has been really eye-opening. It's made me question my own ideas, sparked my curiosity, and it's left me feeling like we need to take action now about the choices we're making as a society.
I agree. That's what's so cool about exploring these ancient mysteries. They show us ourselves. They make us face hard truths and think about different ways to live.
They remind us that history is more than just facts and dates. It's a living story of human experience, with lessons we can learn from.
And probably the biggest lesson is that we have a choice. We can repeat past mistakes or create a better future, one where humanity and nature work together.
Thanks for joining us on this amazing journey to Easter Island. We hope it inspired you to learn more and ask questions, and to think about how the past, present, and future are all connected